Good evening, friends. This is Rupak Banerjee with my channel, The Love of the Written Word. And today, I have chosen the horror genre to share with you. We have named the horror genre and the power has gone. The oldest and strongest emotion known to mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest of all fear is the fear of the unknown. H.P. Lovecraft. The fascination of terror is an ancient one, and it is as ancient as the human race. And there lies its power. It is stronger than our intellect. It is even stronger than our fear, going down to the primitive core of our being. Our ancestors lived and died by it. Then suddenly, someone discovered the fascinating game of civilization, and things started to calm down. Old fight or flight reaction of our evolutionary heritage at one time played a very important role in the life of every human. Civilization pushed the wilderness out of our lives to the periphery of our lives. War, crime, and other forms of social violence came with civilization. But overall, the general life of humans became calm and quiet. We began to feel a little bit of restless because we were missing something. What we were missing was the living at the edge experience. We were missing the tension between the hunter and the hunted. That is when we started telling ourselves stories. We started telling stories to each other during those long nights when the fire started to burn low. We wanted to make our stories as frightful as possible. The rush of adrenaline feels good. Our hearts pound, our breath quickens, and we start once again feeling about the life at the edge. Yet, friends, I am sure you will also appreciate the insightful aspect of horror. Though sometimes a story tends to shock us and disgust us, but the real horror or the best horror intends to rattle us and rattle our cages, shakes us out of our complacency. It makes us think that the world is not actually a place as safe as it seems. Horror reminds us that the world is full of unknown spots, gray areas, and it helps us to exercise our mental muscles and reminds us to keep a little bit of healthy caution close at hand. So the very first book that I am going to share with you today is the Wordsworth Collection of Irish Ghost Stories. This is a very, very thick piece, an anthology of almost 27 authors collected here, all Irish authors. Famous Irish authors like Sheridan Le Fanu, Oscar Wilde, Bram Stoker have all been collected here. And the stories have a wide range of history. From the later part of the 12th century to the early 19th century, stories have been collected. In fact, this is one of the strongest collection of 24 stories by Sheridan Le Fanu himself. The interesting part here is on the backside flap. There is a statutory warning that you make sure before you read the book, you make sure that all the lights of the room are on and all the doors are bolted. My dear friend, they are here to actually give you sleepless nights, these Irish authors. So I start this book vlog with the very first book of the Wordsworth Collection. I got this book for 300 rupees, though the printed price over here is more than 700. The next book is the 23rd volume of the Mammoth Book of Best New Horror, edited by Stephen Jones of the zombie apocalypse fame. And the reason why I've chosen up just after as my second book, because this is a collection of stories published in 2012 of all the authors of 2011, stories submitted in 2011. This is the 23rd volume of the Mammoth Book series, edited by Stephen Jones, and I found only one disturbing element in this book. All the authors are new authors to me. It's a 589 pages book, but it has, in my opinion, an unnecessary 87 pages of introduction by the editor, where he wants to give the details of all horrifying things that has happened in 2011, which to my opinion was a little bit unnecessary. There is 28 stories in this book. The price was $399, but I managed to get it for 125 rupees. Robert Bruce Montgomery. This is the name of a person whom we know famously as Edmund Crispin. And Edmund Crispin is known for his crime novels. But I was happy to find this book, The Best Tales of Terror, edited by Edmund Crispin, and true to his color, he has this 253-page gem of a book edited to perfection. There are 12 stories of terror, not necessarily horror. And what I like about the selection is that there is a diversity of the authors. Starting from Evelyn Waugh, Ray Bradbury, Roald Dahl, there are 12 stories which have diverse length of terror. And like majority of the old books that I buy, there are interesting things here. Let me share with you. The contents have been star marked by the earlier reader. So who was earlier reading this book, he has given a 4-star to The Man Who Liked Dickens for Evelyn Waugh, a 1-star to Ray Bradbury, The Emissary, and there is a royal jelly getting a double star for Roald Dahl. So that was his or her opinion. But I love reading this book because there are comments, there are observations by the earlier reader. In fact, let me share with you, it's an interesting thing. There are footnotes, a unique idea being written by the earlier reader for Royal Jelly. For The Man Who Liked Dickens, he has written, reminds me of Richard Connell, Clary, The Most Dangerous Game. So these are interesting facts that you find written in the old books that you read. Boo! Yes, that is exactly the name of this collection of 13 stories of paranormal. Published by Penguin Random House. This is an Indian affair with all the authors from India. What I liked about this book was every story comes with a short bio of the author. And probably I have read the very first horror story by Durjoy Dotto here in this book. Very well selected from various parts of the country, authors from various parts of the country, and surely I got afraid for a couple of times in one or two of the stories. Surely I bought this gem for only ₹100. Against the World, Against Life. This is a biographical collection of essays of H.P. Lovecraft by Michael Welbeck. Michael Welbeck is a controversial character. If you do a small Googling about him, you will find that this person is a French person and he has lived his life of controversy. But this was his very first work published, and he chose H.P. Lovecraft because he is very, very, very highly influenced by H.P. Lovecraft in his own life. What I loved about this book was the introduction by Stephen King. And in one of its lines, Stephen King writes that Lovecraft has his screams of horror are lucid. His screams of horror are lucid. This is a 237-page biography of H.P. Lovecraft, and it tries to find the reason why his works have remained in circulation so many years even after his death. Unfortunately for H.P. Lovecraft, he did not get his name or fame during his own life, but still today, H.P. Lovecraft is in circulation and his books keep on getting an audience within every generation. That is what Welbeck tried to find out in this book by dissecting the idea of life and against life for H.P. Lovecraft. I got this book also for rupees 150. Coming to my sixth book of the series today, this book is probably one of my treasures. The Great Tales of Terror and Supernatural, edited by Herbert Wise and Phyllis Fraser. This book has a collection of 20 stories of terror, which includes authors like Ernest Hemingway, John Collier, Wilkie Collins, Edgar Allan Poe, and others. The collection of tales and supernatural boasts of a bigger collection of 32 tales. So there are 20 tales of terror and 32 tales of supernatural. And in the supernatural category, you will find authors like Algernon Blackwood, H.P. Lovecraft, A.M.R. James, and O. Henry. This is a 1080 pages book, and the editor has very wisely mentioned that read it at your leisure. Don't take big chunk of this book at a time, because this is very, very good. So a big portion of very good may not appear so good if taken in moderation. So I am also doing the same. I am taking it lightly, slowly at a time. I am reading a story at a time so that this lasts longer for me. Finally, friends, the last book of the series, and probably I have kept it at the last because if we are talking about horror and you go into Google and just type in authors or horror writers or horror authors, invariably in every list, the name that will come up in the very first 3 or 5 authors is Stephen King. The man who has ruled the genre for so many years. But this book is not a horror novel by Stephen King. As the book cover mentions, Anatomy of Horror, he has actually dissected the genre. In his own inimitable style, he has tried to unfurl the reason why we love to be horrified, why we love to get frightened. Of 460 pages of pure non-fiction that brings to you a list of 100 films and 100 books that he liked, the master himself liked in his own time for horror. And I am very, very happy to tell you that I have found 3 of the films by Alfred Hitchcock, my own favorite in the list of 100, as well as 3 by George Romero and 2 by Steven Spielberg. So a total of 8 of the 100 I have seen, which to me is a satisfaction which I can't explain. And out of the books he has mentioned, I have found Robert Bloch, Daphne du Maurier, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I have read The 100 Years of Solitude, Edogawa Rampo, The Tales of Mystery and Imagination. So this was my 7 books of horror, and to end the vlog, we actually intentionally did this a little bit of a dramatics at the beginning of the vlog by putting off the light, and the idea was my sons. So I wanted to thank Shagnik for helping me out in this video with the dramatics and the dramatic scene. If you like this, please subscribe to my channel. You can also send your comments about what are the things you want me to develop or improve in my presentation. And keep well, keep safe, good night, take care.